I never thought heartbreak would come from someone telling me I was too sweet. Sweetness had never been my problem. I was messy, sarcastic, and more often than not, a little bitter. But when Adrian whispered those words, his lips so close I could feel the cool air of his breath, it was like my chest had been ripped open. A vampire refusing to bite me wasn't just ironious, it was humiliating. It all started on an ordinary Friday night in a town where nothing extraordinary ever happened. The kind of town where the loudest drama was the local high school football team losing another game, or Mrs. Henson yelling about raccoons in her garbage cans. But under the surface of small-town America, in the quiet shadows where the street lamps didn't quite reach, I stumbled into something that rewrote every rule I thought I knew about life, love, and danger. Adrian appeared like a ghost out of the night, too beautiful to be real. Black hair brushing against his cheekbones, eyes dark as the endless sky, skin pale as if the sun had never dared touch it. And when he smiled, it wasn't warm. It was dangerous, like a knife wrapped in silk. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he told me the first night we met, his voice smooth and low. I laughed, because what else do you do when a stranger looks at you like he's memorizing your heartbeat? "It's Main Street, not a war zone," I shot back, shoving my hands into my jacket pockets. "The worst thing out here is the smell of greasy fries from Benny's Diner." He tilted his head, watching me with a kind of intensity that made me shift uncomfortably. "You have no idea what's out here." And that was the beginning. I didn't know then that Adrian was a vampire. Didn't know that his presence in my life would flip everything upside down. I just knew that I couldn't stop thinking about him after that night, about his voice, his eyes, the way he seemed to look straight through the bravado I put up like armor. Days turned into weeks, and somehow we kept running into each other. Sometimes at the library, where I'd pretend to study while he lingered in the history section. Sometimes at the river, where he stood by the water like he belonged to another century. And sometimes, unervingly, outside my window, though I pretended I didn't notice the shadow that lingered on the edge of the night. When I finally confronted him, he didn't deny it. "You're not human," I said, my voice trembling, but not from fear. Adrian's lips curved into a smirk, one that didn't quite hide the sadness in his eyes. "You're more perceptive than most." "Then why me?" I demanded. "Why are you always around me?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the coolness radiating off his skin. "Because you're different." Different. I hated that word, because it always meant lonely. It meant being the kid who didn't fit, who kept secrets, who laughed too loudly to hide the quiet. But when Adrian said it, it sounded like something holy, something precious. It wasn't until later, when I saw his fangs glint in the moonlight, that the truth burned its way into me. He was a vampire, and I, in some twisted way, was falling for him. The first time he refused me, it was almost a confession. We were sitting by the river. The night was heavy with crickets and the soft rush of water. I leaned closer, heart hammering, and whispered, "Do it. Bite me." Adrian froze, his entire body rigid. His eyes locked on mine, and for a moment, I thought he would give in. My pulse throbbed in my throat, offering itself to him like a plea. But then he pulled back, shaking his head. "No," the word hit harder than a slap. "Why not?" I whispered, the ache in my chest sharp and raw. "Because you're too sweet," he said, his voice breaking with something I couldn't name. Too sweet to hurt. I wanted to scream, to tell him sweetness wasn't a shield, that being human wasn't protection. I wanted him to choose me, fully, even if it meant danger. But instead, I just stared at him, every nerve in my body screaming with longing, and realized I was already too far gone. What he didn't understand was that his refusal didn't protect me. It destroyed me, because how could I love someone who kept me at arm's length, who touched my hand like it was fragile glass, but wouldn't claim me? And yet, every time I thought about walking away, his eyes, those dark, impossible eyes, pulled me back in. Adrian avoided me for days after that night by the river. It was like he'd vanished, melting back into the shadows that had once hidden him. And for a while, I told myself that was good, that maybe I needed to breathe, to untangle the knot he had tied in my chest. But every time I walked past the places we had been, the library, the riverbank, even the diner, I felt the absence like a phantom ache. The town went on as if nothing had changed. Football games, church on Sundays, kids sneaking out past curfew. But to me, the world felt hollow, empty, because I had tasted something more, even if he had refused to let me taste all of him. Then came the night everything shattered. It was late, and the streets were too quiet, too still. I heard footsteps behind me, heavy and deliberate. Not Adrian's. Something colder. I turned, and 3 figures stepped from the shadows, eyes glowing faintly red, their hunger sharp in the air. Vampires. We've been watching you. One of them hissed, a woman with hair like fire. You're his, aren't you? Adrian's pet. My chest seized. I don't know what you're talking about. But they smiled, teeth flashing, and I knew the lie was useless. One stepped forward, his fangs bared. If he won't bite you, we will. I tried to run, but they were faster, too fast. My back hit the brick wall of an alley, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. For the first time, I felt what real fear was. Cold, paralyzing, final. And then darkness split open. Adrian was there. His voice was a snarl I had never heard before, raw and violent. Get away from him. The fight that followed was brutal. Faster than my eyes could follow, Adrian struck, claws ripping, fangs sinking into his enemies. Blood sprayed the walls, the ground. The air was filled with the metallic tang of it, and for the first time, I saw the predator beneath his restraint. This wasn't the Adrian who quoted poetry in the library, who stood with me at the river. This was the monster he had always been hiding from me. And yet even then I wasn't afraid of him. By the time it was over, the 3 were dead. Adrian stood in the carnage, chest heaving, his black shirt soaked with blood that wasn't his own. His eyes burned when they found me, wild, desperate, ashamed. I told you, he said, his voice ragged. I told you I'd hurt you. You shouldn't be near me. I stepped forward, trembling, but not from fear. You didn't hurt me. You saved me. He shook his head, his fangs still glinting in the moonlight. You don't understand. I wanted to. Every second they were near you, every second your heart raced, I wanted to claim you, to sink my teeth into you, to make you mine. My throat went dry, but the truth came anyway. Then do it. He froze, like I just ripped the world out from under him. I'm not afraid, I whispered, though my pulse thudded in my ears. You keep saying I'm too sweet, too human, too fragile. But Adrian, don't you see? I don't want to be protected from you. I want you, all of you, even the parts that scare you. Silence stretched between us, heavy and breaking, and then broke. His lips were on mine before I could breathe, cold and urgent, tasting of iron and fire. His hands cupped my face like I was something precious and breakable, but his body trembled with hunger. When he pulled back, his eyes glistened not just with hunger, but with love. You'll hate me, he whispered. I could never, I answered. And then his mouth was at my throat. The first sting of his bite was agony, sharp and burning, but it was nothing compared to the flood that followed. A rush of warmth, of connection, of something primal and eternal. My blood poured into him, and with it, something more. My trust, my surrender, my love. He pulled away before I was weak, his chest heaving, his lips stained with me. Tears tracked down his face, though his fangs still gleamed. You're still alive, he breathed, half in disbelief, half in relief. Of course I am, I said softly, touching his cheek, because you'd never really hurt me. That was the night everything changed. The days after were a blur of healing, both mine and his. Adrian stayed by my side, his guilt warring with the strange new peace between us. The bite didn't bind me to him the way old legends warned, but in a way it did something deeper, tethered us not through force, but through choice. There were nights when I caught him staring at me like he still couldn't believe I was real. Nights when I'd reach for his hand and he'd hold it like it was the only thing keeping him alive. The danger never fully disappeared, we both knew that. There would always be other vampires, other shadows. But the fear that had once stood between us was gone. One evening, back at the river where it all began, I asked him the question that had been burning in me since the night he first refused me. Why did you really say I was too sweet? Adrian looked out at the water, the moon reflecting in his dark eyes. Because sweetness is rare in this world. I've lived centuries, seen everything rot and decay, but you were untouched by it, and I couldn't bear the thought of staining that. I smiled, leaning into him, my head on his shoulder. Sweetness doesn't mean weakness, Adrian. It doesn't mean I can't choose you, even if it costs me. He pressed his lips to my hair, his voice breaking. Then I'll spend every moment proving that I'll never let you regret it. And for the first time, I believed him. Months later, we walked hand in hand down Main Street, the town still as ordinary as ever. Kids laughed outside the diner, the smell of greasy fries in the air. To everyone else, we were just two boys, too close, too intimate, too much. Some people stared. Some whispered. But none of it mattered. Because when Adrian's fingers tightened around mine, when his smile curved with something that wasn't dangerous but tender, I knew I'd found home. Not in the town. Not in the ordinary. But in him. The boy who refused to hurt me. The vampire who thought I was too sweet. The love who finally let himself stay. And in the quiet of that small-town night, I realized something simple, something eternal. I wasn't his victim. I wasn't his weakness. I was his choice. And he was mine. Forever. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.